Good evening, global broadcast. Today, I will be speaking to you about preparing for exams. Now, what I need you to do for me right now, call your friends, call your family members, tell them change is on right now. And we'll be talking about preparing for exams. And I am sure that this information will benefit everyone. So I'm just going to give you a few minutes to share. Yes, just go ahead, share the link with everyone so that they can join us. All right. Now, change is a channel that is for you. Why do I say it is for you? This channel is a channel that prepares you for a bright, productive, and not only change, but I am sure that you're all aware that we are now facing a pandemic. This is a pandemic that I am certain that for most of you, not all, but for most of you, it's the first time you're experiencing a pandemic in your lifetime. Is this pandemic? The COVID 19. 2020, I am sure, is a memorable year for most of us. This is a time when we are going to be sharing with your children, yes, your children and your grandchildren about this pandemic. You are going to be sharing with them what are some of the things that happen during this pandemic. For example, the mere fact that from last year, May, not May, last year, March, until this minute, most of you have been staying home. All right. But what I really want to emphasize is that with COVID 19, it has affected a lot of things. It has changed our world. It has changed the way the teaching and learning process takes place. Yes, before you used to be in the physical classroom, but from last year, March to be exact, you have been at home. You have been doing your studies online. All right. Even the way in which you socialize with your friends and your peers and everyone, it has also changed. Why has it changed? Before you used to be able to hug and embrace and talk to everyone face to face. No longer. It's like that. What is happening now? You have to socialize with your friends online. Even when it comes on to the workforce, I know that millions of people, because remember, the pandemic is not affecting one country only, it is affecting all the countries around the world. So I know that millions of people are out of a job. So, as a result of COVID 19, a lot of persons, including some of you who are viewing me right now, you have lost your job. When it comes on to the physical sports, the sports industry, a lot of contact sports because we have to stay physically distant. We are no longer engaged in the sporting industry. All right, that has gone dormant for a while. All right, even the way in which we worship. Before we used to go to church, of course, and we sing and we worship in our building, in the church building. Now we have to do our worship online. Ah, boy. Before, we used to spend a limited time with our family, but now, as a result of COVID 19, we are spending 24 hours, yes, 24 sevens with our family. Now that a lot more persons have joined, I am going to go straight into our topic for today, our discussion. And of course, I said before that we'll be talking about preparing for exams. Now, I'm going to be looking at three steps that we are going to be talking about. I'm going to be looking at the things that you should do when you're preparing for an exam. I'm going to be looking at the things that should not be done when you're preparing for an exam. And I'm also going to be sharing with you the COVID-19 protocols that will be observed. Now, step one, I first want to look at the things that should not be done. That's the first thing that we're going to be looking at, the things that should not be done. Number one, do not put off studying until the last minute. You do not want to do that. If you put off the studying until last minute, you're going to become bombarded with information. You are not going to be able to remember what you studied. So, my recommendation to you, avoid, yes, do not put off studying until last minute. If you are preparing yourself to fail, you can do that. But if you are preparing for success, you will not put off studying until last minute. So that's a no-no. That's one thing you want to avoid. Number two, do not go to an exam without being properly prepared. What do I mean by this? How are you going to study? How are you going to revise if you don't have your notes? You go to your lectures, you don't take notes. You go to your class, you don't take notes. You're going to the exam, you have nothing to study before you go to the exam. How are you going to provide the information that is needed for you to pass the exam? So never you go to an exam without being properly prepared. Make sure you have all the things that you need. Make sure you have your pens, your pencils, your books, whatever it is that is needed for the exam. Make sure you have them. Do not go to an exam unprepared. Avoid studying lying down in your bed. I'm going to repeat that one. When you're going to study, avoid lying down in your bed. Why do I say that? For example, let's take right now as I am speaking to you. It's raining. Outside is extremely cold. And if you're about to study and you take your books and you go into your bed, of course, you're going to pull for your comforter or your blanket, or if not, you're going to turn on the heat in your house. And of course, as soon as you get comfortable and cozy in your bed, within 5 minutes of starting to study, beginning to study, you're going to fall asleep. Now, how is that going to help you with your studies if you fall asleep? So, when you are going to study, try as best as possible. Avoid lying down in your bed. Do not study lying down in your bed. Avoid over cramming your brain. What do I mean by that? The night before or a couple hours before the exam, you start to read all your notes. Yes, and practice everything a couple hours before the exams. Don't do that. If you do that, this is what is going to happen. Remember, in order for something to stay in your long term memory, you need to revise it, practice it over and over. So if you study, say, 2 hours before an exam, that's not going to go in your long term memory. You're not going to remember it. And guess what is happening? What is going to happen if you cram your brain? If you forget one word out of the sentence, for example, is, you're going to have problems because what? It's in your short term memory and you're not going to remember. So just forgetting one word is going to throw off the entire thing. So remember, avoid cramming your brain a couple of hours or the night before an exam. Okay? Avoid going to bed late. Now, sometimes you might go to bed late as a result of studying. And this is the reason why I said what I said before. You don't want to be cramming your brain the night before. So if you go to your bed late, of course, you're not going to get the required amount of rest that is needed. All right. So avoid going to your bed late before an exam. You're required to get at least 8 hours of rest. So make sure you do not go to your bed late the night before the exam. Do not study by yourself only or in groups only. Why do I say that? If you study by yourself only for an exam, guess what can happen? Your knowledge sometimes can be limited. Why do I say that? Remember, you're not going to know everything. And if you study in groups only, you're only going to go into exam knowing what your friends know or what the group members know. And sometimes not everything that your friends or your peers or the group members say is correct. So what you need to do is balance both. Don't study by self only, don't study in groups only. Merge the two and it will be very, very beneficial. All right? Do not eat a lot of sugary, greasy, junk food before an exam. And my recommendation, within a day or two before the exam, avoid eating a lot of junk food and sugary food. That is not healthy for your brain. All right. If you eat a lot of junk food, a lot of greasy food, guess what is going to happen to your body? It's going to slow your body down. And after you eat these greasy stuff, what happens? It's a term that is called niggeritis. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but that term means that you want to sleep. So after you eat all these things, it slows you down. The lot of greasy and junk, the pizza, the hamburger, yes, the hot dog, all those things. It slows you down, and what happens? You want to sleep. So if you eat these things during an exam or the day before an exam, what is going to happen to you? While you're in the exam, you're going to fall asleep. And I am certain that's not what you want. You want your brain to be ticking. You want to be able to remember everything. So remember, avoid eating a lot of junk food. Avoid dehydration. Yes, you don't want your body to become dehydrated. You need to ensure that your body is properly hydrated. Your brain functions best when it is properly hydrated. So if dehydration should take place, you don't have enough water. I am not talking about the sugary drink right now. I am speaking about water. Yes, if your brain is clogged with just the sugary drink and you don't have enough water, it will not function properly. So try your best. Avoid dehydration. Avoid too much caffeine the night before the exam. Why do I say that? If you having too much caffeine the night, if you consume too much caffeine the night before an exam, you're going to have problems sleeping. All right. And remember, you need your rest. So if you consume too much caffeine, you're going to be up for the entire night and you're not going to get the required amount of rest that is necessary for your body to function properly. So you're going to avoid too much caffeine. Now that we have talked about all the things that you should not do, now it is time for us to talk about the things that you should do before an exam, the things that you should do when you are preparing for an exam. Now, that takes us to step two. Number one, begin your studies weeks before the exam, before your examinations. All right? Yes, it is relevant. A recommendation that I'll give you, as soon as you go to your lecture or you go to your classes and they are completed, after the session, spend a few minutes to read over the notes. Spend a few minutes to just try to understand what was taught. If you do that each time you go to a session, by the time times come up, time for exam, you will be properly prepared and you will not need to cram your brain. Everything will be in your long-term memory because over a period of time. You would not be waiting until last minute to be prepared for the exam, to study for the exam. So my recommendation, as soon as you get the information, read it over. Keep it fresh in your memory. And I don't mean that you should just read it over once. Read it over a number of times. When you do that, it is going to be stored in your long-term memory and not your short-term memory. Things that are stored in your long-term memory remains there for a long period of time. So when you go to your exam, these things will just come up. All right? They will just come back to your memory. Ensure that you take adequate notes during your lecture or during your class time. Ensure that you take adequate notes. If you do not have adequate notes, how are you going to study for your exam? How are you going to revise? How are you going to practice? How can you practice information that you do not have? So, in order to prepare for success, you need to ensure that you take adequate notes. Make sure you have the data, make sure you have the information that is required for you to study. Okay, very, very important point. Make sure that you make a timetable. And when you make a timetable, just not make it, but ensure that you use it. It does not make sure that it doesn't make sense that you're going to study. And when you're going to study, you're going to study everything that you got from September until this very minute. It does not make sense. Make a timetable and not just make the timetable, but identify one thing at a time that you're going to revise. So if when you make the timetable, if you decide that you're going to be studying math, for example, you know that for today, you're going to be studying math at 1 a.m. or 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. All right? So you know that for that 1 hour, you're going to be studying math. You know that at 3 p.m., you're going to be studying English. You know that come tomorrow at 9 a.m., you're going to be studying, and so on. All right, so make sure that you make a timetable. Very important. Outline the goals. You need to outline the goals. Outline your goals. Why do I say outline your goals? For example, you're going to be studying math. I'm just choosing a subject now. You're going to be studying math. Probably say for today, when I'm studying math, I am going to be looking at fractions. Be specific. All right, you're going to be looking at fractions. What aspect of fractions are you going to be looking at? Probably you can look at addition of fractions, subtraction, division, and of course, breaking down a fraction. So you know that for that 40 minutes or perhaps that hour, you are going to be looking at fractions. All right. And of course, the next time you go to study, you're going to be looking at decimal places. All right. So make sure you just make a goal, set a goal so you know exactly what you want to achieve for that day or for that study period. Okay. That the area that you're going to be used for studying, make sure that it is comfortable and make sure that it is properly lit. Why do I say make sure that it is comfortable? How are you going to be at your best in an uncomfortable situation? For example, you're going to study. Make sure you have a nice desk, you have a nice chair. Say you're going to be sitting on a stool while studying. Your back, you don't have anywhere for your back to rest on. No, that's not going to be comfortable. Or perhaps say for today, you're going to be studying and you're going to be sitting on the ground, the floor. And of course, the floor is extremely cold right now. All right, so that would not be comfortable. Or perhaps some of you might have, those concrete blocks that you have outside. You might be sitting on one of those. It's going to squeeze your bottom. All right, you're going to be very, very uncomfortable. So you don't want that. Make sure that the area that you're using is very comfortable. And the second thing, as I said earlier, make sure that the area is properly lit. You need good lighting to study. You do not want to damage your eyes. So make sure that the area that you're using is properly lit. All right. Another thing that you need to do, make sure that you use past papers. You're going to use some past papers or some old exam papers. Why do I say that? If you use these papers, what is going to happen? You're going to become very familiar with the structure, how an exam is set. All right, you're going to become familiar with the questions. You're going to become familiar with the instructions. What are some of the things that you may be asked to do? All right, so use these past papers, practice them. Another thing that past papers can help you to do, the time will be on the past paper to say that this exam will last for 2 hours or perhaps 1.5 hours. So you practice those questions and you practice to complete those questions within the time that is given for the examination. So past paper is a very good method to use for your studies. Now share your answers or perhaps explain your answers to anybody that is in your house. Anybody that is there with you, whether it be mommy, whether it be daddy, whether it be an aunt, uncle, cousins, your siblings, anybody. It does not matter the age. Just share your answers with them. Explain what you're doing with them. In doing that, it's a form, it's a method that you use to practice. The person that you're explaining to might not understand, but the mere fact that you're talking and you're explaining it, it is going into your long term memory. Remember, the more you practice, the better you'll become at something. And of course, parents, please, if they are sharing what they learn with you, give them some time, spend some time with them. Even if you don't understand, simply say, I don't understand. Can you explain it a little bit further? And in so doing, in the student or your child explaining it again, it is going to be concrete in their mind, in their brain. So just assist them. All right. Another good study tip, make use of technology. Why do I say make use of technology? Yes, man. Sometimes you get some information at school or in your lecture, wherever you are, at your college, wherever. Yes, and you might not understand it. For example, we have been using Google Classroom. We have been using a lot. And sometimes you might not get it at first when the teacher explains it to you. So, what you can do, you can go back in the classroom or you can go online and you can research the topic. And I assure you, you're going to find a lot of videos, a lot of information on the topic that you are researching. So you can use technology to enhance what you know. Another thing that you can use technology to do, remember, you sometimes need to study in groups, study with your friends. So, in using technology, of course, you can use WhatsApp, you can use Zoom, all right, and share with your friends and study together. Okay, drink a lot of water. Remember what I said in the don'ts, avoid dehydration. You need to keep your body hydrated. Your brain needs to be hydrated. When your brain is hydrated, it functions at its best. All right, so you need to keep your brain hydrated. You need to keep your body hydrated. Drink a lot of water. Water is what I want you to drink. Of course, you can take your bottle of water to the exam with you. Make sure that you have your water. Make sure that while you're doing your exams, you sip your water. Make sure that your body is hydrated. Because, of course, we are preparing for success and we want what is best. All right? So please remember all the things that you need. Make sure that you have your pen. Make sure you have your pencil. Make sure you have your liquid paper. Make sure you have your calculator depending on what exam you're doing. Make sure that you have every single thing that is needed for the exam. Make sure we're preparing for success. So make sure you have all of these things. All right. And remember, you must be on time. You must be on time. Okay. Now we are going to move on to the COVID-19 protocols that will be observed during this pandemic. Remember what we're talking about? Preparing for an exam. So even though we're preparing for an exam, there is nowhere you're going to go in this world right now where the COVID-19 protocols will not be observed. So the first thing that you're going to do in observing the COVID-19 protocols and preparing for your exam, you are going to be sure to arrive at your exam location, the destination, the center, perhaps the school, if you're in school, your college, if you're in college. All right. And you are going to ensure that you are at least 20 minutes early for your exam. Remember, all the protocols will have to be observed. So you need to give yourself time to go through all of these things. So, for example, say that your exams begin at 7:10 in the morning. What you need to do, you need to get to your school or the examination center 20 minutes before the beginning of the exam. All right. So if your exams begin at 7:10, you need to be there at 6:50 a.m. so that you have your 20 minutes time to go through the protocols. Now, the first thing that is going to take place when you go to your center, number one, your temperature will be checked. After your temperature is checked and it is in range where it should be, it will also be recorded. After it is recorded, you are going to be asked to wash your hands or to sanitize your hands. All right. After you have completed that, you are going to have to find your designated location. Okay. So your designated location, it will be placed in your Google Classroom or in your WhatsApp group, or it will be on the whiteboard, the notice board, as soon as you enter your school or the exam center. So you will identify on the board, or it will come to your email, or it will come into your Google Classroom or your WhatsApp group where the area is that you should be for your exam. After you have found this area, say for example your classroom, you go and you sit in your classroom, whichever desk and chair that is assigned to you for that day. That chair that you select, that desk that you select, that area, that little space that you select for yourself to do your exam, make sure that you use it for the entire duration of the exam. Make sure that you use it for the entire day. All right? Don't change that seat. Don't change that desk. Make sure you use it for the entire day. Okay? Now, I want you also to avoid crowding an area. For example, the lunch area. When it is your break time, I am going to ask you, just go to your lunch area, collect your lunch, and go back to your classroom. We do not want you to be in any crowded area. Avoid crowded areas. Remember, it is your responsibility to protect yourself. No one can protect you as best or as better than you. You have to take this responsibility for yourself. So remember, when you go to your lunch area, collect your lunch. Don't remain in the lunch area. Take your lunch to your class or to your designated area that you're doing your exam, your assigned area. Sit in your own desk and chair, yes, and have your lunch. All right. I know that you like to hug your friends. I know that you like to greet. I know that you like to share. But I am going to recommend, because of COVID 19, you are going to practice social distance. You are not going to share with your friends. All right? You are just going to keep your food, eat your food by yourself. Okay? While you're doing your exams, one thing I want you to make sure that you do not do, make sure that you have everything that you need for your exams. Remember, you will not be allowed to borrow anything from anyone. You need to have your own supplies for yourself. So make sure you take everything that is needed for the exam to the examination room with you. You will not be allowed to borrow anything. All right? Now let's go back to the COVID 19 protocols. Another thing that we're asking that you do, wear your mask. You must wear a mask at all times. If you're not wearing your mask, you will not be allowed to enter the compound. You will not be allowed to enter the examination room. You must wear a mask. When I say wear your mask, I don't mean that you should be wearing it on your ears. I don't mean that you should wear it on your head. I don't mean that you should wear it under your chin. I don't mean that you should be wearing it on your hand. I don't mean that you should be wearing it in your bag. Make sure that your mask is on your face. Make sure that it covers your nose, yes, your nostril, and make sure that it covers your mouth. All right, it should be placed around the ears, covering all of this area. So make sure that you wear your mask. You will not be allowed on the compound or in the examination area without your mask. And it's not just wearing your mask, keep on the mask. Of course, you can take a few minutes to get a breather, but after you have completed that, be sure to return it or replace it, put it back where it was. And where is it supposed to be worn? Over your nostril, over your nose, over your mouth. All right. So make sure that at all times you have your mask. Make sure that you wear it properly on your face, over your nose, and over your mouth. All right. Make sure that you have at least two masks. Why do I say that? Because anything can happen. Accidents do happen, right? And just in case an accident happen and that one gets damaged, you want to ensure that you have a second one to replace it. So make sure you have two masks. All right. Another thing, my students, never, I repeat, never you share your mask. Don't share your mask. All right. For hygiene reasons, do not share a mask. Treat a mask like a personal item. It is a personal item. So you're the only one that should wear your mask. As a matter of fact, a mask should not be worn for longer than 4 hours. Okay? So as soon as you leave the examination room, your home, you need to dispose of that mask if it is a disposable mask. If it is one of those cloth masks, make sure you wash it. All right? Another tip, make sure you do not wear a mask more than once. Yes, do not wear a mask more than once. Once it's a disposable one, wear it one time only. Get rid of it. Okay? Yes. So just be sure to follow all of those protocols when you go to an exam and when you're preparing. Another thing that I need you to remember, be sure to take your sanitizer. Yes, you need your sanitizer. All right, because you're going to need to sanitize your hands. You're going to need to keep your hands as clean as possible. When it is possible, wash your hands. But if it is not possible, just use the sanitizer. So you need to take your own sanitizer. All right. So, my viewers, thank you so very much for joining me this evening. Of course, I am Lady Evans on Change, featured on Thy Kingdom Come Global Broadcast. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, I am going to ask you to touch the notification. Yes, touch the subscription bell. Yes, touch the subscription button right at the bottom. Yes, just press on it right now. Of course, this is the channel and this is the platform that I'm going to be using to speak to you hereafter. So I'm just going to ask you, just touch on the subscription button at the bottom, touch the notification bell. Yes, so that the next video, you will be among the first persons to receive the notification. Thank you so very much for joining me today on Change on Thy Kingdom Come Global Broadcast. This is Lady Evans saying, have a blessed evening. And of course, all the best in your exam. Until next time, bye.